What up, Saints? Good morning. Love y'all as always. Hope this message finds you well. Well, first of all, I want to start out by saying happy birthday to someone who has been a spiritual father to me through my early growing stages. Someone who I have dined in the Word with and searched the deep things of God out with, and have had incredible experiences with, and just it's been an incredible journey just learning more about God and coming into more and broader and deeper revelation of the mysteries of God. So happy birthday to you, Mr. Robert Johnson. And I want to talk about one of the things that he posted on his website, Real Talk Broadcast Network.com, one of his blogs. I found it to be very insightful and interesting, and based on my own experience, I found it to be extremely accurate, and it's something that I talk about and teach about in life as well. So I'm going to read this and discuss it. So, written by Robert Johnson. One of the most dangerous aspects of life are assumptions. Well, you might ask why. That's one of them old preacher things where you ask, where they say something and then they say that you asked them a question. That's just a joke for Mr. Johnson right there. Anyway, here's my opinion. It comes from Proverbs 6:16, King James Version. I never understood why my father, Deacon Emmett Goff, told me, never assume anything and always go to the source. Which, by the way, that is not only good advice, it is Bible advice. I'm learning. One day, while out driving in driver's ed, I made an assumption about what another driver was going to do. My driver's instructor's response told me my assumption was incorrect. He hit the brakes and he said those words. I'm assuming those words were to never make an assumption. At that time, I didn't fully understand what it meant, but thought it was intriguing enough to commit to memory. These days, I get it. Now, here's the cold part, and we'll get into like spiritual and life examples, but just using this example of him driving. Let's say there was no driver's ed instructor that could slam on the brakes. The danger of that assumption could have resulted in a car accident, a car wreck, I should say, rather. And not only could he have hurt himself, but he could have hurt the other driver. The other driver could have had passengers that could have been hurt. It could have even been pedestrians and passerbyers or other people that had nothing to do with that got hurt. He could have hit the car, and that car could have hit another car or hit somebody, and it could have resulted in extreme harm or even loss of life. So keep that understanding as we're talking about and reading about assumptions and the dangers of assumptions. Let me get to this next page. Hold on a second. All right, here we go. Proverbs 6:16 through 19. Verse 16. These 6 things does the Lord hate, and the 7th is an abomination unto him. Verse 17. The first thing is a proud look, a lying tongue. Second thing. The third thing, hands that shed innocent blood. Verse 18. The fourth thing, a heart that devises wicked imaginations. Wicked imaginations. Those are basically evil assumptions about people. The next thing, the fifth thing, feet that be swift in running to mischief. Verse 19, the sixth thing, a false witness that speaketh lies. And the seventh thing that is an abomination to him is he that soweth discord among the brethren. And like with all those six things, he's saying he hates a particular aspect of a person or their behavior. But with that seventh one, he hates that. He just said he hates the person, period, that does this. But let's look at this from the perspective of assumptions. Now, you can assume something good, and clearly that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about assuming something negative, wicked imaginations, a heart that devises wicked imaginations. Now, when you devise wicked imaginations about somebody, guess what you might end up doing? First of all, you already have feet that are being swift to run to mischief because you've asserted yourself in somebody else's business in a mischievous way to where in your heart you're now devising wicked imaginations. Now, once you do that, you're probably going to go and be a false witness and speak lies based on your own wicked imagination. And now, doing that, you now have a lying tongue. And you might end up having hands that shed innocent blood because you might harm someone or cause someone to be harmed based on your actions. And someone who was innocent, who did not do anything, but your wicked imaginations have told you that they did. And this is already a prideful situation. He said he hates a prideful look. For you to think within yourself that you have the all-knowing judgment to know what somebody is doing or why they're doing it when you don't know anything, you have no proof of anything, you have no insight, no knowledge of anything, but yet you feel like you have the great judgment to know what this person is doing. That's already prideful within itself. And that all can end up sowing discord among the brethren. It all goes hand in hand. Just based off a wicked assumption. And he ends the writing right here on this page. It says, this false seeks a place or places to hide assumptions in those they know won't consider the source. I've experienced this myself. Or should I say, I've experienced it by not experiencing it. Because me within myself, I'm not going to judge someone based off of an assumption or based on what somebody else has come and told to me. And no disrespect to anybody who does this, but this is something you're supposed to learn this in elementary school. We are taught this, at least in my culture, we taught this in elementary school. Mind your business, right? Or somewhere in grad school, you learn like just because somebody says something about somebody doesn't mean that it's true. A person could have ulterior motives. So for me, myself, I'm not going to judge someone based off what somebody else said to me. Especially if it ain't none of my business. And I might go to that person and talk to them, if anything. But here's what never happened to me. Nobody ever came to me speaking negatively about someone else. Why? Because the false seeks a place to hide an assumption in those that won't go and consider the source. It's going to go and talk to people who they know or think or believe will only consider what they said and then make judgment based off what they said. The person who won't do that, they don't go to that person. So when I did hear things were happening or being said, I was always shocked. Like, it was all around me, but I never heard none of it because nobody would come to me and say anything to me about it. You know what I'm saying? I guess how we say in the world, real recognize real, I guess fake recognize fake. So the fake is going to go to the fake. Or the weak is going to go to the weak. Anyway, let me get to this next page. All right. There we go. And by the way, I'm going to try to leave a link in the description box so you can go read the whole thing, because I'm going to stop right here, but there's much more good information. Anyway, why assumptions start. It's easy to make assumptions. All you need is incomplete information about a situation. And hitting it right on the head, because this is the same thing I always talk about. An unwillingness to ask the questions you need to complete the information, and an unwillingness to ask the questions you need to complete the information. It's almost human nature to make an assumption about almost everything. But where foolishness comes in is when you act on the assumption that you've made as if it was true, or when you believe that your assumption is true just because it makes sense to you. See, what the wise person does, and this is in Proverbs as well, you gather all the information before you make your judgment. All of the information. The fool just hears something and goes off of what they hear. Am I calling people a fool? Nope, the word is. God is. If you do that, you're a fool. If you hear something and go off of it just because that's what you heard, you're a fool. According to God, you are a fool. What a wise person does, and most of us are fools, so don't feel bad, but what a wise person does is gathers all of the information before they make a judgment. And if you can't gather the information needed to make an accurate judgment, then you let it go. Period. You let it go. And if it ain't none of your business and has nothing to do with you, and is not harming anyone, let it go anyway. Even if you can gather all the information, what do you need that information for to make a judgment about if it has nothing to do with you and it's not harmful to anyone in the body of Christ or anyone, period? But if you're going to do it the proper way. Gather all of the information. Because in the absence of complete information, he writes, you have to fill in the blanks yourself. And this is what people do. They fill in the blanks themselves. And the cold part is, whenever people fill in the blanks themselves, 9 times out of 10, they fill in the blanks with the worst case scenario. What is the worst thing that could have happened? That's what they fill in the blanks with, right? I've talked about this before. Someone who thinks that their spouse is cheating. I guess if you're a cheating spouse, then you're a chouse, a chouse. But someone who thinks their spouse is cheating, they're gonna fill in all the blanks with that predetermined thought. So if they come home late from work, you don't know what happened, but you're going to fill in the blank with adulterous behavior. If they go to the side to take a phone call, you don't know why they did that, but you're going to fill in the blank with that instead of getting the information. Again, there's positive assumptions as well. I'm guilty of this. If I know somebody and I know their character, and maybe I shouldn't say guilty because maybe this is a good thing. If I know you and I know your character based off of multiple experiences that I've had with you, and I know that you have good character in certain situations, if someone comes to me with something that doesn't fit that, I'm going to assume that's wrong. It doesn't mean it is, but I'm going to assume it's wrong. Or if I am going to make an assumption based on something I see, I'm going to fill in the blanks with what I know about you and what I've seen you do, if I'm going to fill in the blanks. But what we're talking about again is negative assumptions, wicked imaginations, right? And they fill in the blanks themselves with these negative thoughts. It's rarely are you filling it in with a positive thought. Like somebody can lie to you. I used to do this experiment when I was a kid. I don't know why I used to do social experiments when I was a little kid, but I did. And I learned that you can tell somebody a positive truth and they won't believe you based off of nothing other than it was positive. But you can tell somebody a negative lie and they'll believe it just because it was negative. You could tell a girl that you loved her and she might not trust it. But if you told her you cheated on her, she would believe it. She wouldn't be like, nah, you didn't. She would believe it. And I guess the reasoning is, why would you lie about that? You know? But I learned that people have a easier time accepting negativity than they do something positive. And maybe it's a defense mechanism, which he talks about beyond where I'm reading, which is why I say go check it out. It's a defense mechanism. Anyway, let me finish this because I'm running out of time almost. So he goes on to say, you fill in the blanks with your interpretation of what you see or hear. And your interpretation comes from past experiences that seem similar. It comes from your past experiences and also from those you've heard about from others. Now, armed with your own information, you connect dots that are not there. You can't help doing this because you're missing relevant information. In trying to make sense of the situation, you make connections between today and the past. Connections that don't really exist, and you jump to conclusions that are wrong. And that is exactly how this happens. And going back to the first page, when I talked about the car accident that could have happened because of these assumptions, what damage can happen within the body of Christ, or within a family, or within friendships, or within a work environment? Because people are going around talking to other people based on assumptions that they made about other people. This person is doing this. This person is doing that. You don't know what this person is doing, but yet you're going around telling people what they're doing. Or you're telling people why they're doing this and why they're doing that. Based off nothing other than you believe it. You believe something you made up in your head. What harm can come from that? That can start a division among the body of Christ. You can cause other people to reject somebody that should not be rejected. And don't think for 1 second Satan is not at play in this. He is the mastermind behind it. The mastermind behind it. Do not get caught up in your own assumptions. Again, it's okay to make an assumption. It's almost human nature to do that. But after you make an assumption, if you make an assumption, remember that your assumption means nothing and it is not true. Unless it is. But you don't act like it's true and you don't treat it like it's true unless you confirm that it's true. as he says, go to the person and ask them. Go to the person and talk to them. This is what I'm hearing you're doing. Or are you doing this? Just flat out. Is this what you're doing? And if the person says no, then no. Could they be lying? Yeah, they could be lying. But that's between them and God at that point. That's between them and God. The word even says not to accept an accusation from someone without multiple witnesses. And multiple witnesses are not people who believe the same assumption. Multiple witnesses are people who saw it happen. Don't let the enemy get you caught up, man. Stay wise.